The 7th of June, 1936, Victoria Park, London. Thousands of people stream into the open ground of the park. Blackshirts march in formation, curious onlookers gather, and beyond them, a hostile crowd has no intention of staying quiet. Along the streets leading to the park, supporters line the pavements, raising their arms in the Nazi salute, as a car carrying their leader moves slowly through the streets. At the podium in Victoria Park, a baronet and former cabinet minister dressed in the black uniform of his fascist movement addresses the assembled thousands. For years, he builds a political force to bring fascism to Britain, relying on street corner meetings, marches, political violence, and a relentless campaign of anti-Semitic propaganda. His name is Oswald Mosley. Sir Oswald Arnold Mosley was born on the 16th of November, 1896 in London into a family rooted in the English-landed aristocracy. His father, Sir Oswald Mosley, 5th Baronet, was a wealthy and largely absent figure, addicted to gambling and alcohol, who played little role in his son's upbringing. His parents separated while Oswald was still young, and he was raised primarily by his mother, Catherine Maud Edwards Heathcote, and his grandfather, Sir Oswald Mosley, 4th Baronet. It was his grandfather who became the dominant male figure in his life. One of the reasons was that his grandfather disliked his father and saw Mosley as a substitute son. Young Mosley studied at West Downs School in Winchester, and then in 1909 he joined the Winchester College. He found school both difficult and boring, but liked sports. Young Mosley liked to hunt, but interestingly, he became a boxer by the age of 15 and also became fencing champion in his school days. In 1912, Mosley left college without receiving a degree and was looking for his further purpose. In January 1914, he entered the Royal Military College in Sandhurst, but was expelled in June of the same year for a riotous act of retaliation against a fellow cadet. The outbreak of war saved his prospects. When the First World War began, in the summer of 1914, Mosley was commissioned into the British cavalry unit, the 16th Queen's Lancers, and deployed to the Western Front. He later transferred to the Royal Flying Corps as an observer. However, while showing off before his mother at Shoreham Airport in May 1915, he crashed his plane and broke his right ankle. He was then sent back to serve on the Western Front. However, his leg failed to heal, and he was sent home for further operations which saved his leg, but left him with a permanent limp. By October 1916, it was decided that Mosley was only fit for desk work, and spent the remainder of the war in desk roles at the Ministry of Munitions and Foreign Office. The war shaped Mosley more than any other single experience, leaving him convinced that a new generation of leaders was needed in Britain. In December 1918, at the age of 22 and with no university degree, Mosley stood as the Conservative candidate for the Harrow parliamentary constituency in the general election. He won with a large majority and became the youngest sitting member of the House of Commons, part of the British Parliament. He was tall, handsome, and a fascinating orator, and he moved with ease through the social world of the political elite. On the 11th of May 1920, he married Lady Cynthia Curzon, known as Simi, the daughter of George Curzon, former Viceroy of India. The wedding was held at the Chapel Royal in St. James's Palace in London. The hundreds of guests included King George V and Queen Mary. Mosley was genuinely attached to his wife, with whom he had 3 children, but he was constitutionally incapable of fidelity. Over the years that followed, he conducted affairs with numerous women, including his wife's younger sister Alexandra and their stepmother, Grace Curzon. Despite these betrayals, Cynthia remained devoted to him and followed him through successive political reinventions. In the House of Commons, Mosley quickly made enemies by attacking his own side. He opposed conservative policy on Ireland during the War of Independence, and went away from Conservatives and for some time became an independent in the Parliament. In 1926, he returned to Parliament as the Labour representative for the Smethwick constituency, and in 1929 the Prime Minister, Ramsay MacDonald, appointed him Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, with the specific responsibility for unemployment policy. In his new position, Mosley produced a detailed program of economic intervention, but his proposals were repeatedly blocked by the cabinet. When the party refused to adopt his program, he resigned and founded the New Party in early 1931. It was a political miscalculation of the first order, as the New Party won no seats in the 1931 general election, and Mosley lost his own seat in the Parliament. The failure pushed him in a direction from which there was no return. In early 1932, 1 year before Adolf Hitler and his Nazi party came into power in Germany, Mosley visited Benito Mussolini in Italy and returned convinced that only fascism could rescue Britain from economic collapse and political stagnation. In October 1932, he founded the British Union of Fascists, known from the start as the BUF, uniting various small fascist groups under his own leadership. The movement adopted black-shirted uniforms modeled on Mussolini's units, and Mosley styled himself after the Italian Duce. The party claimed up to 50,000 members at its peak, attracted early newspaper support from Lord Rothermere's Daily Mail, and drew large crowds to its rallies. The BUF's program was protectionist, nationalist, anti-communist, and increasingly anti-Semitic. The turning point came on the 7th of June 1934, when the BUF staged a mass rally at Olympia, a major exhibition venue in the Kensington district of London. Anti-fascists who interrupted Mosley's speech were beaten by black-shirted bodyguards of Mosley, and this show of violence was witnessed by members of Parliament and journalists. The resulting outrage caused Lord Rothermere to withdraw the Daily Mail's support. The Night of the Long Knives in Germany that same month, in which Hitler ordered the murder of part of his own leadership, further damaged the BUF's image among moderate sympathizers, as Mosley praised Nazism in Germany. Membership soon collapsed. One observer later remarked, "I came to the conclusion that Mosley was a political maniac, and that all decent English people must combine to kill his movement." Yet, rather than moderate his course, Mosley intensified the anti-Semitism. Mosley publicly denounced Jewish interests as controlling British commerce, the press, cinema, and the City of London. Mosley's anti-Semitism did not work with his broader audience, and as the BUF membership declined to less than 8,000 by the end of 1935, Mosley shifted the party's focus back to mainstream politics. However, anti-Semitism never left the movement. By 1936, the BUF was concentrating its resources on the East End of London, trying to win support in the poorer part of the city. But in the end, the East End became a symbol of their defeat. The attempt to march through the East End on the 4th of October 1936 was intended as a show of force and as a provocation of other parties, but it ended in the humiliation of the British fascists. Mosley and his supporters were faced with 100,000 counter-demonstrators who had erected barricades across every planned route. The BUF column of around 3,000 supporters was redirected away from the area, and the marchers dispersed. The Battle of Cable Street, as the confrontation became known, was celebrated by the anti-fascist movement as a decisive defeat of British fascism, and entered popular memory as a symbol of community resistance to racism and intimidation. 2 days after the events at Cable Street, on the 6th of October 1936, Mosley, who was a widower since 1933, married his mistress, Diana Mitford. The ceremony took place in Berlin at the home of Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi propaganda minister, and Adolf Hitler was among the guests. The marriage was kept secret for over a year. Like her husband, Diana was a committed admirer of the Nazi regime. After Mosley came back to the United Kingdom, he continued to organize marches, and the British government was sufficiently concerned to pass the Public Order Act 1936, which came into effect on the 1st of January 1937, and, amongst other things, banned political uniforms and quasi-military-style organizations. Mosley continued to organize, but the movement was declining. In October 1937, addressing a crowd of 8,000 in Liverpool from the top of a van, he was knocked unconscious by stones thrown from the crowd. By the time the Second World War began on the 1st of September 1939 with Germany's invasion of Poland, Mosley was campaigning for a negotiated peace with Hitler, and by many, he was viewed as Hitler's useful idiot. Mosley's arguments found little understanding in a country preparing for war, and when France fell in May 1940, and a German invasion of Britain seemed possible, the government acted. On the 23rd of May 1940, Mosley was arrested and interned without trial under Defense Regulation 18B. The BUF was banned, and Mosley's wife, Diana, was also interned in June, shortly after the birth of their son, Max. The Mosleys lived together for the next few years in a house inside the Holloway prison in London. They were released in November 1943 on the grounds of Mosley's deteriorating health, a decision that provoked outrage in the press and in Parliament. The Mosleys were placed under house arrest until the end of the war and denied passports for some time to limit their travels. Mosley, despite his political reputation being destroyed and his movement disbanded, tried to rebuild his position. In 1948, he founded the Union Movement, the successor to the BUF, which combined pan-European nationalism with virulent opposition to immigration from the British Commonwealth. In 1951, he left Britain for Ireland and then France, settling eventually in a house called Le Temple de la Gloire, meaning Temple of Glory, located in Orsay, a suburb south of Paris, where he spent the remainder of his life. He stood for Parliament twice more, in North Kensington in 1959 and Shoreditch in 1966, campaigning on platforms of white supremacy and anti-immigration, and was heavily defeated on both occasions. In the 1950s, he became an early proponent of Holocaust denial, while not denying the existence of Nazi concentration camps. He claimed that they were a necessity to hold a considerable disaffected population, where problems were caused by lack of supplies due to incessant bombing by the Allies, with bodies burned in gas chambers due to typhus outbreaks, rather than being created by the Nazis to exterminate people. He sought to discredit pictures taken in places like concentration camps, Buchenwald, and Bergen-Belsen. He also claimed that the Holocaust was to be blamed on the Jews, and that Adolf Hitler knew nothing about it, and criticized the Nuremberg trials as a zoo and a peep show. Oswald Mosley died of natural causes at the age of 84 on the 3rd of December 1980 in Orsay, a town in France. His body was cremated at Père Lachaise Cemetery in Paris, and his ashes scattered in the pond in Orsay. The man who had begun his career as the most gifted politician of his generation, praised across party lines for his intelligence and his oratory, spoken of as a future prime minister, ended his life as a footnote to fascism, remembered chiefly for a march that never reached its destination, and for some, he became the worst Briton of the 20th century.
Thanks for watching the World History Channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.